So we'll start. So welcome. Today's webinar is the good, the bad and the trained. We've had a fantastic response to this, and there's been some really great questions that have been asked. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start. So your cameras and microphones are turned off. And if you can ask any questions you might have through the chat function. This webinar is being recorded and will be published on our website at some point. So now I'm going to introduce you to the team. So today we have some faces I'm sure the majority of you will recognise. We have Neil, our Group MD, Dee, our Commercial Director, and finally Kelsey, our Technical Manager. So let's get on with the webinar. Neil, it's over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well. We have got over 360 people registered for this webinar, and as such, we've had a question from virtually every single one of them. So I'm not sure we're going to get through all 360 questions, but what we have done is we've grouped them into quite a logical, or as we feel, is a logical process. What I'm going to start off with, the very first question I'm going to ask is probably for BICSc itself, everything about BICSc. And I'm going to throw it open to, I'll start with Denise. Why is it important to train cleaning operatives?
To be honest, there's multiple reasons to train. One is to get the best out of the operative, to actually ensure they know what they're doing, that they're effective and they're efficient in their job. Two is to actually make them feel valued in their role. But the most important from our point of view is really to keep them safe. Because if they're trained and they know how to use product properly, they know how to dilute properly, they're far less at risk than if they haven't received training. I can go on for ages, so I'm cutting myself off there.
Kelsey, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think just obviously, first and foremost, it's all about safety. I think in the current climate, especially where we all find ourselves in work-wise, the retention piece around training your staff about the importance that they feel, the integration within, all of the different kinds of facilities that we actually find ourselves working in. But as part of the team, training has a lot to answer for. So obviously safety first, but in terms of business continuity, you haven't really got a business if you've not got training. Okay.
So moving on, so that kind of, I think, sets the scene for us. BICSc's mission is all about protecting the cleaning operatives. So for us, it's about ensuring the operative has the relevant training to ensure they're safe. I'm now going to move on, and I'm going to touch on, we had quite 5 or 6 questions around AI. I think what we need to differentiate between is online and AI, and there are a lot of online training options out there. I think AI in terms of training cleaning operatives, I don't think there is anything out there at the moment, but the questions we've been asked, first and foremost, are there any AI tools for the cleaning industry? Kelsey, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I think obviously it's becoming a lot more prominent now out there. AI is being used in everything. What I've seen used very effectively is AI in the way of a tool for getting rid of language barriers. So being able to use translation sort of tools for AI in order to help all of our amazing, vibrant cleaning industry be able to access training. Obviously, there are more tools out there where people are putting maybe SOPs through AI tools in order to help create different formats for training. So whether that's through like presentation form or again, having it as somebody speaking to them or, videos being created and stuff. So it's definitely out there. I do think it has a really good tool in making things accessible. I think it's just more of how you can facilitate that yourselves within organisations, and also making sure that I have fallen victim, luckily not in work life, that AI doesn't know everything and isn't capable of anything. So if we are asking an AI to speak about cleaning, then let's make sure that it's doing it properly.
Dee, do you want to
as you can
carry
imagine,
that on?
For those of us that know me well, I just love AI, and I'm lying through my teeth. But it does have its uses, and there's also uses where artificial intelligence has been used to spot problems, to see that there's a spillage or that there's a potential slip risk, and then identifying that staff need to go to that area. So it's going to be huge. It's only very much in its infancy, I think, in cleaning, but there's so much that will come on, and so much that we don't even know it can do yet. So it's definitely a developing market.
And okay, I'm gonna start questioning now. So I'm gonna add some bits to try and get some more information out of that. In terms of using AI in the cleaning industry, do we actually feel that at any point AI will replace the cleaning operative? Because I'm more of the fan of AI than anyone is, I think, of the three of us. But in terms of AI and the cleaning operative, I personally can't see that happening. In terms of AI and providing management tools, I can massively.
I think it can help the cleaning operative because it's able to actually say, well, you need to go here, you need to go there. So it saves the walking time, the waiting time, the time that's wasted. So it could be a very useful tool. But I think what we need to do whenever we bring anything in is explain to the operatives what we're doing, and also explain how it will or won't impact them, because people are scared of what they don't know.
Kelsey, have you got anything to add to that? Or are you in agreement?
No, yeah, as always, in agreement with Dee. I think it's completely important that where we see AI maybe making in the future a more practical role in that side of things. Obviously, we talk about the importance of letting the cleaning operative know, but also stakeholders. I think setting people's expectations with AI is pretty key in terms of what it can do, can't do. And if people are introducing, robotics and different AI things in terms of management and in practical application for productivity, the amount of productive time that is wasted because of that misunderstanding of just what the capabilities are and how to co-work alongside these tools that we have now. It's about all stakeholders involved with an area or a facility or even a business that has AI to be fully in a full understanding of the capabilities and of just what it is there to do.
Okay, that covers a lot of the questions that I think we've been asked around AI. I think there's one in there. Will AI make BICSc training affordable for cleaning operatives? And I think where I want to come in on this question is AI and training for cleaning operatives. In terms of the training, AI might be able to provide that training. But the big thing about training for the cleaning operative from BICSc point of view is the assessment. And for me, I don't think there is ever going to be a tool that can provide assessment to ensure that the learning has been absorbed by the candidate that's being trained. And in terms of making training more affordable with AI, I think the online versions of the training have already done that. And I don't think there's very much more that can be done in terms of the reduction in pricing for that. But Kelsey, Dee, are you in any disagreement? Anything?
No, I'd just like to say we have actually got an AI assistant taking notes. The note has just come up in chat. So we are being recorded, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so I'm going to move on from AI and I'm going to move on to the section around audits. I'm going to start off with what's the difference between an audit and an inspection? Who's going first? Kelsey?
Go on, Kelsey, you go first.
Okay. Well, as we've seen recently, a lot of people are sort of transferring over those definitions. I would say an inspection is more of a look at the cleaning standards in an area, and an audit is sort of covers a lot more than that. So normally when we look at audit, we look at processes, maybe that includes documentation, the management of any sort of system. That's sort of the definition of it. Now, there are terms, I'm thinking very quickly of NHS terminology. That's the easiest one that I can grasp, where they have a technical audit, which is what most of us would would call a cleaning inspection. So an inspection normally is a look at something, an inspection of an area or a thing, whereas an audit is a bigger term for a sort of deeper dive into the processes and management around that.
And for once, I'm going to say I agree with Kelsey. Is actually, for me, a lot of people do mix up the two terms. A cleaning inspection is looking at physically whether it's clean or dirty. An audit is looking at the reasons why it's clean or dirty for me. So the audit is far more involved in the fact you actually try and sort out the root problem if there is one, or you sort out what's working really well, because that's what the audit shows you. So are people trained? Is the machinery fit for use? Is there a schedule of when things happen? All those things are part of an audit, but they're not part of a cleaning inspection.
Okay, I've got nothing to add. I mean, I can go down some of my historical roots and go back to my finance days, and an audit is literally what both Kelsey and Denise have said. An audit is about checking a process, checking what you're saying is there, that it's followed the process that you lay out and you explain to your auditors. It's all about knowing that the process that you're using is effective and is working. And yeah, an inspection is looking at something and inspecting how it is at this point in time. So moving on with audits, what are our thoughts on independent versus internal auditing, and when is each most effective? See, you're laughing the loudest. I'm going to put you up first.
I am laughing the loudest. So doing an internal audit or inspection should be effective, because it should be a way of managing your own staff. It should be an honest way of looking at your standards. But an awful lot of customers tend to put a KPI in that you need to score 80%, 90%, 95%. If it's going to cost you money as a contractor, if you come under those scores, how likely are you to score it under there when you know it's going to be a financial penalty? So I think an independent audit is far more thorough in some ways, although it shouldn't be. There is still the place for both, in my opinion. Internal audits need to be there. External audits need to check the quality of those audits. Now I'll shut up and stop laughing.
Kelsey?
Yeah, I was laughing because I've been on both sides, and I'd obviously, as anyone would, much prefer internal. I do think that internal only works with full transparency. You know, everybody's been guilty of, oh, do I quickly just wipe that before I write it down, or what do I do? External, although sometimes can be, you know, very honest, I think it allows you not only to see where you are falling down or sometimes consolidate really great practice, but it also allows you to learn things. I've very much, whenever I do external audits for people, you know, we use it as a training tool in terms of somebody is always going to spot something that you don't. Somebody is always going to have a comment about better practice that you've maybe not thought about. So I think internal practice in terms of audits, definitely, as long as it's transparent. And if you can, try and use it with somebody that's not necessarily completely operational within the cleaning services team. Because, you know, if you're part of it, it happens. People don't write everything down or look at things with a nicer eye. I think then external audits, my recommendation would be at least 4 times a year. You grab an independent auditor in to come and have a look. But different times of the day, different times of the week, different months, not always in a completely perfect pattern. And, you know, looking at different areas, not just your bad areas and not just your showstopper areas, but just randomized areas at random times to give you a real understanding of what is actually going on.
Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more to that. For me, an internal audit is about management. And obviously, if you're looking after a cleaning team, if you're looking after a number of teams, I do think internal audits are key. I think you should have a more regular one through a supervisor or a manager that's focused on the site, and whether that's weekly, fortnightly, monthly. I think you should also have an internal or audit every quarter, so that somebody else is then coming in and auditing and checking the results that are coming from them and just confirming how well things are being done or not. And then your independent audit, I think, is key, because that brings a fresh pair of eyes. And we can all be guilty of this. When you're in something every day, you don't see it. You walk past things that when you walk into a different building, you'd spot straight away, but you're not seeing them in your own building. And I do think that regular internal versus external independent audits are key to managing any cleaning operation. Moving on then, please, I'm expecting a certain response from either Kelsey or Denise to this, but how can we improve our readiness for unannounced inspections?
By doing your own inspections. So just as we were saying, the internal audit is just as valid as the external. You're ready for an external audit if you know where your standards are and what's happening. So it's about you being prepared to inspect, audit and check your own standards. And even within your companies, switch your managers about occasionally. Let them go and audit somebody else's site. It's about getting those fresh eyes and making sure that you are inspection or tour ready.
Kelsey, are you adding anything to that?
Yeah, I think I'm a big advocate of, train it from the cleaning operatives up. Show a cleaning operative how to check their own work, what you look for, where you look. I'll never forget before BICSc, Denise coming to site and showing me that the underside of a dispenser is actually checked on an audit. And that was many years ago, and is now, as anybody that has had an audit done by me will know, the first thing that I probably check in a washroom or in any room that has a dispenser. I think actually showing cleaning operatives everything that is expected and what is actually checked, are we getting down on our hands and knees and looking in certain things, or how much attention are we paying, are there expectations that they don't understand? And a lot of the time there'll be different service levels that they maybe don't understand, or different things that they're actually cleaning that they're not supposed to be cleaning, and vice versa. So I think training from cleaning operatives up in terms of not necessarily fully how to do a full inspection, or if you do an audit, a full audit, but actually what is expected of each element and how to look out for those things will help massively for unannounced audits.
Okay, I'm going to say one thing that I was expecting one of you to say, but you didn't. But to me, an audit or an inspection should always be unannounced, because if it's announced, it's prepared for. Therefore, you're not getting a realistic
Don't know what you mean, Neil. We'd never pre-prepare for anything. I mean, as Kelsey was saying earlier about the random, I worked a lot of MOD sites and they didn't randomise. So you knew if they'd done A, B and C this month, they were going to do D, E and F next month. And I will let you all imagine where we concentrated our time.
Okay, my last question on audits is, how would you best communicate with a supplier if the cleaning is not up to standard? So I think if this is the client wanting to talk to a contractor that their cleaning is not up to standard, how best would you do that, or advise to do that?
I think having pictures within the audit is key, because a picture does say 1,000 words. I also think having people available when you're doing the audits. So yes, you want them at random times and dates. You don't want people prepared for them, but there should be somebody on site from both sides to actually go around and see that it's been done fairly. And I think as long as people know it's done fairly, it's a much easier sell.
Kelsey?
Yeah, I think invite them for a walk around. Not necessarily at the start if you're wanting to sort of, try and keep it away from being completely KPI related. Have a walk around, but also not only looking at the cleaning and inspection side of things, but when we talked about that bigger audit piece before, look at sort of the efficacy around that, go in the cleaning cupboards, look at the cleaning equipment that they're using, and just have a chat whilst you're walking around. And keep it a bit more low key at first, but then obviously when you're introducing pictorial evidence into audits, if you've not already got that, you know, you've been there, you've seen it together. It makes it a lot more of a nicer way forward.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is be 100% sure you know what's in your contract. You know what they're expected to clean, and that you're not assuming that something should be clean that's not part of the contract, because that's a common mistake that's made. And I think there's a question in cleaning coming up in a minute. How do you agree what's clean and what's dirty? And I think any new contract, or even an existing one that hasn't done this previously, both the contractor and the client actually communicating expectations and relating that to their contract and what their contract's saying. Does every client understand what actually is in their contract means for a cleaning contractor? Does every cleaning contractor understand what the client wants from their contract? It's knowing that information and making sure everybody's on the same page to start with would be one of the things I would recommend. I mean, do you agree with that? Am I speaking wrong there, Denise?
No, I think one of the good things to do about a specification is actually to make sure you've got a scope of works to support it. So a scope of works is a more detailed explanation of what you expect. So if you tell me to mop a floor, I might just mop the middle. I'm doing as you've told me to do. Whereas if a scope of work says to move things, to go under things, and the thoroughness of that clean, then that's a much more benchmarkable status. So mopping the floor, washing a wall, you need to give either the standard or the method of what you expect done in that. And without that, you're going to be up for an argument. Or a strong discussion.
Okay, I'm going to leave audits there. We've covered most of the questions that came in through it on the audit side there, but I think in summary, communication is key in terms of understanding the expectations from client to customer, and I think also you shouldn't know when an audit's happening is a quick summary of where to start on those. I'm going to move on to some of the cleaning questions. Microfiber cloths, yes or no?
How long have we got? Right. Have you got a proper laundry facility on site? If you have not got industrial laundry on site, I would say no. Because the microfiber cloths that you buy, if you buy the good quality ones, need to be laundered at certain temperatures to kill the bacteria. They need to be held at those temperatures. Domestic washing machines don't do that. So there's a whole list of questions behind microfiber. Speaking of microfiber, I use it at home. I think it's a fabulous system, but most people use it just as another cloth or another mop, and they don't use it as a system.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm obviously like I think that me and Denise are joint queens of microfiber in a lot of senses. I completely agree with the laundry system. There are companies out there that will almost rent you microfiber cloths if you've not got that facility available at site. So I think that's definitely something people could look into. There are also disposable microfiber systems that can also be very good. But again, when used properly and not kept in a cupboard, gaining whatever bacteria you can imagine for a long period of time. In terms of the environmental stance, obviously people are looking more and more into microplastics and things like that now. So if you are going into a microfiber system, on the sustainability side of things, look into the ratios of what the microfiber is made out of, but also that laundry system again becomes paramount in making sure that you are maintaining the microfiber properly. But like I said, if the disposable side of things is a better side, then again, you need to look at how often it's being used or whether it's being kept for a long amount of time.
So I'm going to throw into this mix, and I'm not for your answers, obviously. A lot of people are using microfiber with chemical.
A lot of people use it because of the smell. People like to leave a smell when they're cleaning. Some chemicals aren't compatible with microfiber. They'll clog the fibers, they'll stop the microfiber being effective. So you need to be sure that what you're using doesn't affect your microfiber. By the same token, as Kelsey's just said, look at what percentage of microfiber is in your cloths. If you're going to go and buy an industrial washing machine and system, then you want a good range of microfiber. And if you think about it, you can pay anything from 29 pence to £5 for a microfiber cloth. Look at how many washes they're guaranteed for. Some of them come with a 100 wash guarantee, some of them come with a 500 wash guarantee. Look at what you're actually buying and look at the product, because if you're going to pay for that 500 wash cloth and then put it with a product that clogs it, you might as well flush your money because that cloth's no longer effective.
Yeah, I think like in terms of like the infection control sort of side of things as well with microfiber, washed correctly, absolutely amazing. But the worst thing in the world, and I don't know about you, Dee, when you've been on site and stuff, is they've washed it, it's been washed at the right temperature, we've not used any softener, and then it's hung up in a cleaning cupboard next to a mop bucket that's filled with God knows what and got God knows what on the outside of it. So it's laundry process from start to finish, and that includes the collecting of the microfiber from wherever it's been used, whatever it's been used for, and that it's not being washed alongside thousands of mops and this uniform and that glove that someone accidentally put in the laundry basket. That from start to finish, it's maintained in a safe way for the clean operatives, but also in the most hygienic and least transferable way possible.
Yeah, and judging how much microfiber you need to use, once you've pre-damped, if you haven't used it, it needs to be laundered again. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So the bacteria are attracted, they do stay in it. So if you've got pre-damped cloths at the end of that shift, they go in the laundry.
Okay, moving on from microfiber then. How to write cleaning definitions. What is clean? And absent of dirt and soiling, etc. But how do you define it? Everyone has different ideas of what is clean. Thoughts, please.
Well, we actually do define it. That's why we call BICSc standards at times. So if you're an ATM or you're a corporate member, you get a copy of BICSc standards and best practice. That has got what we say is clean, and it lists it in 3 different ways. It's clean, it's acceptable between cleans, and it's unacceptable. So it's a very clear definition path of what is or is not acceptable when it comes to cleaning. And if you should not be a corporate or ATM member, it's available in our online shop. Now I feel like I am selling.
Kelsey, anything to
Yeah,
add?
I think the definitions of what is clean and what is not, but also an understanding of what contamination types are, which again is also available. But I'm not going to go on the hard sell. Yeah, an understanding of different fault types, is absolutely key, and definitely when there's a dual understanding of that, maybe between client and customer, or even just within the same cleaning services department, the understanding of how an inspection has gone or how clean or how dirty something is it really comes to light. It honestly, it changes a lot. So an understanding maybe between whether something was a failure in method, so in the way that somebody's cleaned, or whether it is literally just a case of debris in whatever form that may come, and is therefore accepted between cleans, can really indicate whether you are classifying something as clean or dirty. So the definition of what is clean, what's not, or whether it's acceptable, and also the sort of contamination fault types.
And the big one for me for that is the condition defect, because not everything is cleanable. And clients and contractor alike need to accept at certain points that some things cannot be cleaned because of the state they're in. And that needs to be an accepted point as well.
Okay, I've got some very specific cleaning questions. How can I get biro pen marks out of wipeable leather type chairs?
I was very good. I didn't list the specific product because, as you know, we do not recommend a product. So there are proprietary products that are on the market that will remove those, and they're listed very clearly on the manufacturer's websites. But also Rubbing alcohol will also remove things like that. But whatever you use, please test it in a difficult to spot place. So if the chair can be turned upside down, or there's a little area you can use that you don't often see, make sure that it doesn't leach out the colour from the leatherette or the leather. Make sure it doesn't damage the surface before you treat the whole chair.
Okay. Coffee marks from a carpet and marble floor.
Key to that is as soon as possible. So if there is a spillage, get the spillage out off the floor or out of the floor as often as possible. Try and blot it out. Rinse it with just clear water. And then if necessary, again, you'd need to use a proprietary product. If it's gone into the marble, you're really going to need to look at a poultice. So you can actually put a poultice dressing on the marble to draw the stain back out. Alternatively, if you wait long enough, it'll sink in and you won't see it.
Okay. EPDM floor in external area is hard to clean. Any suggestions what kind of machine and chemical can be used for this type of floor?
It's everybody's least favourite type of floor, also known as dimple, or it looks like old pennies on the floor. You really need a soft brush and you need a neutral detergent, really. As with anything, if you've got chance, and this is where it's difficult, if you can pre-soak the floor, allow it contact time, scrub it, pick that up, rinse it, pick that up, that'll give you the best finish. But for that type of floor, a soft brush on a machine is possibly the most effective.
Okay, then if after spray buffing a polished floor with a white pad, it develops a cloudy finish, what is the cause of this? After just washing with water, the cloudy finish disappeared.
Right, it could be two things. So one, it could be that you've not got a vacuum unit on your buffing machine, and that cloudy finish is actually the dust that's raised when you buff, even with a white pad. Or two, you may have used a product too strong when you've been buffing, and it's actually smeared and gone into that kind of pattern, and the water's washing off that excess product. Difficult to see without looking at it.
Okay. I'm not going to you, Kelsey, because I'm assuming there's nothing to add.
No, there's nothing to add. I'm
Or
just
is there-
laughing that we've literally just been having that conversation, Neil,
Yeah, I know.
about clouds on the floor and what the causes are. So I feel like we should have just recorded the conversation and played it.
Conversation. Yeah. Okay. A very hopefully straightforward one. The best way to clean windows.
Kels, because my answer's microfiber, so
Yeah,
I'm walking
microfiber and
away.
water.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'd go. Keep it nice and simple. There are obviously excellent products out there, but if you are using a microfiber system and using it properly, microfiber and water is more than suffice.
Yeah.
And we are generally talking internal windows and ground floor windows, not working at heights, because that's not our. We would send you to a window cleaning specialist for those.
Yeah. I mean, if people can use a dolly, a chamois and a blade, they have my heartfelt appreciation. I can't. I've tried for years. Microfiber for me is a much easier system. For people that can use the dolly and blade properly, that is faster, but it's about how good they actually are with the different systems available.
Okay, I'm going to now touch around environmentally friendly products because there's a number of questions around this. How to provide a good cleaning for our clients now that environmentally friendly products don't do the job. We haven't said this. This was a question sent in to us. Just putting that out there. Kels, do you want to start that one?
I think, well, if we look at the title of the webinar, a lot of the times when we talk about environmentally friendly, obviously we've got products that if you don't feel like they're working, we've not said that. If you don't feel like they're working, then look at the training that you're offering. And if it is still the efficacy of the product that you're using, there's definitely ways that you can train to be more environmentally friendly. So, for example, the correct dilution of chemicals that you are using, if it's not necessarily on an environmentally friendly range, can be impacted in two different things. You can train it through understanding how long you can actually keep that chemical for, so that they're not just disposing of the chemical if it's still got 2 weeks left, let's say, in its diluted form. But also the other environmentally friendly side of like the correct teaching of dilution and things like that is that they're not going to waste as much product if it is something that needs to be not diluted and applied directly, such as maybe a descaler. But also you're going to be saving so much money and packaging on going through all of those products, which really does impact the environmental aspects of the chemical. So my first answer would be training, teach them how to use it, where to use it, and how often to use it.
So just to add to that, the dwell time, often with some of the environmentally friendly products, they need a longer time on the surface to be active. So certainly for things like the descalers, some descalers on the market will take 5 minutes, some will take 30. So make sure that your staff understand those dwell times for them to be properly effective. I think there is a range of eco products that is effective. It's finding the ones that work for you. And do they work exactly the same way as all the other products? No, they don't. And that's got to be part of the consideration.
Okay, on specifics, again, glass shower doors cannot remove all the lime scale. After soaking and rinsing, it still dries murky.
Okay, what I'd say to you is wet the surface, get yourself a sponge, put the descaler onto the sponge and go from the bottom and wipe up the shower. Once you've given it the contact time, then rinse it off. You'll find you get a much better finish that way. It's an easier application, and also you don't waste as much product.
We've got a question thrown into the chat, which I'm going to just throw up there. Issue in a communal area of a block of flats. Residents use electric scooters even, I'll try and speak properly, and leaving burn marks on the floor. Is there a best way to remove these?
Right, the tyre marks and the burn marks are two different things. So a tyre mark will be almost a rubber residue. A burn mark will have scorched your floor. Depending on what your floor type is, it might not be possible to move that burn type. So if it's a soft or a laminate floor, you're not going to get the burn out of there. The rubber marks should, and she says hopefully, should rub off when they're dry, just with a soft cloth, if it's just part of a tyre mark.
Okay. How to remove chewing gum from a rug pile?
There's a proprietary product, which I won't name, which is actually very, very effective. But again, it needs the contact time. So with any of these products, make sure that you're looking at the product time. So I used to sell this product, so I'm not naming it, but I used to sell it and was regularly called out saying it didn't work, and nobody had given it the 5 minutes it actually needs to work. So look at the contact times for the products.
Okay. So I'm not sure how we're going to answer this one, but I'll leave that to you. How to handle cleaning during busy hours in hospitals, for example, the main lobby of hospitals where every hour more than 500 people come in and go out. Kelsey, with the hospital background, do you want to jump on that?
I'll pay you later, Kelsey.
It's possibly one of the most asked questions when we do training is like, how am I going to do this in a lobby area? Small but often, little but often. Work, as we always do in healthcare, top to bottom, but work in sections. And sometimes I know that it does feel like a thankless task. But, just working around section by section, there are going to be things that you are going to have to do outside of those busier periods. But, it's a case of looking at it, realizing the patterns in the people that are coming in, and also looking at the equipment that you use. A lot of the times what we see used in hospital lobby areas, healthcare lobby areas are, let's say, for floor care, utilising machinery that can dry on the spot, so scrubber dryers with vacuums, let's say, because we're taking a lot of the slip trips and the slip and trip hazards out of the way. Again, little and often means that you're not going to be accumulating as much dust, hopefully. So you're not going to have that risk. But yeah, just prioritize the different areas and look at the times of the day. And it might be that you need to average it over a couple of weeks and look at different equipment, but trial things and don't be afraid to trial it.
For me, look at the risk as well. So often now in the reception areas, they've handily put a drinks cart. You might need to visit that a lot more often to deal with any slips or trips or any spillage there so that there is no slip or trip. Look at the risk for the areas you're cleaning as well. And as Kelsey said there, the equipment that you've got is key. A good trolley with what you need on it, because A, that lets people work, you're working in the area. You can mount your safety signs on the trolley so they're not a slip risk themselves. And you can actually work behind it so people aren't going to fall across you. So really look at the kit that you've got to do that job.
Right, time is running away with us. I've got one more question from the chat. Shoe scuff marks on school floors are a nightmare. Any advice on best technique or buffer pad?
You probably want a blue pad, but that's going to depend on your floor type. So look at what your floor type recommends. Blue is slightly more abrasive than the red. White's not going to touch your rubber marks. Red will take them off if it's a certain type of soft rubber. Blue is more effective. But again, look at what your floor says first, because some floors won't take a blue pad.
Okay, Kelsey's doesn't look like she's got anything to add there. So
No.
I'm going to move on to one question on colour coding. So we've had a couple, and it's many BICSc corporate members are using site-specific colour codes instead of the universal standard. Is there a reason why BICSc does not have mandatory guidelines on this? And do all companies use the same colour coding is another one that's come up. Colour coding is not mandatory anywhere across the world. The BICSc colour coding system is the BICSc best practice recommended colour coding system. Denise, do you want to add anything to that?
It would be wonderful if everybody would adopt it, because then as a cleaning operative, we tend to be pretty nomadic. We go from company to company. We'd be using the right cloths all the time. There would be huge benefits if as an industry, we could stand up and say, government aren't going to do this, but we are. So that would be my viewpoint on it. BICSc has got one there. Everybody's welcome to use it. We've got the posters, we've got the support for it. It would be marvellous if we could go that way.
We've got a number of questions around contracts, number of hours, and I'm trying to productivity rates, that kind of thing. What I'm just going to ask the guys to do is just to touch around calculating hours productivity rates and what's available from BICSc. So, Kelsey, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, it's my life at the moment, I think, productivity. Okay, so what I'll do, if I miss anything, I'm sure Denise will drop in, especially with the BICSc related stuff. So again, corporate members, ATM members, you have access to BICSc standards and best practice where there are productivity rates in there. What I will say on my little side is the biggest thing that I'm seeing at the moment with productivity rates is it's brilliant to have one. It needs to be realistic to the environment that you're in. So be really careful that you are applying the right productivity rate, not just what you think you could do at home or what you've seen, the quickest cleaning operative in the world do, or the rate that you think that you would work to, because the likelihood is not everybody's Usain Bolt. Not everybody's going to work to that same speed. And remember that it is productive time. So what I mean by that is that that's not allowing for any fresh air breaks that many people have. It's not always allowing for lunch breaks, for maybe tea breaks that they have at 10 o'clock in the morning. That setup time when they're getting all of their stuff ready in the cleaning cupboard, the close down time. But also if you've got, lovely Kelsey that's cleaning in building A, are you allowing for that time period for her to get over to building B and maybe even set up again? So if you're thinking about productivity, think about it as productive time, and you need to allow for unproductive time. But remember, And if you use hours, they are averaged. That if you are basing this off your own timing, say if you've timed yourself cleaning a certain room, that maybe not everybody is going to work to the same speed, whether that is higher or lower.
And to be fair, Kels, there's not a lot to add to that other than look at what equipment you're giving them, look at the training you're giving them, and look at what you're asking them to do. So if your site's over a 6-mile radius, there's going to be walking time. There's going to be non-productive time in that you need to calculate. You cleaning it when you're fresh, you've just gone in, you've done it in an hour, go in at the end of an 8-hour shift and try it again. Because if your people are working 4 hours, 8 hours, you've got the end of their shift, not just a start. Now, I would say if I'm physically cleaning, I'm reasonably effective for 4 hours at a reasonable speed. I then start to slow up, and so do most people. So put yourself in their shoes if you're going to do an 8-hour shift. Productivity is key to getting the hours right. Our business is based on how many hours we supply. That's where we make our profit or we lose it. So be careful when you judge your productivity, because it is the biggest thing that people get wrong.
I think one of the things we also talk about within our productivity rates, it also depends on the age of the building. It depends on the density of the building. If you're in a open plan office that is run with 70 desks, as opposed to that same space only having 40 desks, it's going to be so much harder to clean. And there is a change to that productivity rate that needs to be made to allow for that density. Productivity rates in the winter as opposed to the summer, are they the same? Do you really think they are? Are you cleaning a building that is basically next to a beach and the sun's blowing in all the time? There needs to be, whilst a standard productivity rate is great, there are individual circumstances for every building and how dense the building is populated, where it's situated, what the weather is at the time, that affect productivity.
Yeah, I mean, as a contractor, we used to work out the productivity on a route. And on some buildings you'd lose, on some you'd gain. So in actuality, say you'd got 100 hours across 2 sites, they were the same size. One might end up with 60 hours, one might end up with 40. This is where actually applying what you know is key, not just having the book.
Okay. There was a question about how regularly we update our productivity rates. So, Dee, you're the one that's responsible for this. So, do you want to cover this one off?
I am. I've been with BICSc 8 years now, and we've had a full review on 3 different occasions. If things come in and things change, we look at different things. But by the same token, when we tell you it's 93 metres of washroom or 420 metres of corridor, we're judging that you've got a scrubber dryer for that corridor or you've got a ride-on vacuum. We're not expecting you to do it with a Henry. So it's also about making those judgments that you've got the right equipment and the people are trained to use it. Because frankly, I'm probably faster with a mop than somebody that's not trained with a scrubber dryer. So train them, make sure they've got the right kit, and we will continue to review the productivity rates because otherwise they're not relevant.
We have had some questions around tenders and things that are put into tenders, like working to the latest version of BIC standards or cleaning to BIC standards, and is there any way we can help make this clearer for the people producing the tenders versus the people reading them?
One, they need to have actually read BIC standards and best practice, because as you were saying about putting in the variations for density, variations for building type, that's actually written into standards. You can make those judgments with standards, but a lot of people will say use BIC standards and not even know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So read the book. If you've got questions about it, come and ask us.
We do try and work with as many companies producing tenders to try and get them to understand what BIC's standards actually are. You know, is BICSc corporate membership cleaning to BICSc standards? No, it's not. It's a corporate membership saying that you all agree with our ethos. You might well be cleaning to BICSc standards, but that doesn't mean you definitely are. So we are trying to explain the difference to people producing those tenders, but as you can imagine, there are countless of them out there. Trying to find all of them when we aren't actually contractors looking for cleaning contracts is not the easiest, but we get to as many as we can. Right, moving on. I'm going to move on to training, I think, because there's questions like recruiting and retraining retraining reliable staff. See, you're smiling.
That'll teach me. Without training, I'd say no staff are really reliable. They need to be trained. They need to feel valued. People work for companies that value them. They work better for people where they feel they're actually seen, acknowledged, and the job that they do is appreciated. That's human nature. So it's not just about training your reliable staff, it's about training all your staff. And also about refresher training, because things change. Have you changed your product range? Have you changed your machinery? Have you changed your way of working? All those things need to be trained in, and the staff need to accept and decide to say they accept them.
And this jumps into you kind of hit on some of the points here. How can you motivate the team? Kelsey, do you want to carry that on?
Yeah, train, and keep it transparent. You know, like Dee touched on there, the amount of times we go in somewhere and you think about how often we review documentation. And even if we add in a control measure, it's okay having it in a cupboard, you know, a cupboard that's still beautifully printed and basically still warm off the press 9 months later. But has that actually been communicated? And it's amazing how distant from a company a cleaning operative or supervisor, a manager can feel without that training, without being kept up to speed of those changes, because those changes are what actually impact their job. It might just be a quick box change and a signature for somebody else, but that's actually what impacts their day to day. So motivating staff, train them, celebrate them, thank them. There's no point in training without the celebration at the end of it. And that doesn't mean balloons or, you know, skipping through the corridor. It means, you know, well done. It's a big milestone. Any training is being put on the spot in any circumstance, or even the ability to try and learn new things is a big thing. So, yeah, motivate through training and celebration.
I think the only thing I'm going to add on motivation for any team comes from good leadership. You need, and good communication is key to that. Kelsey's already touched on most of this. Bring people in before the training starts, explain to them the reason for it, you know, help them through the process. Just sending them on training course is not enough. You then need to check in with them afterwards, make sure that they're gaining information from the training course they're on. You're actually leading and you're actually supporting them through the process. That always helps to motivate. But in terms of motivation around a general team, outside of motivation for training, that's a pure management and leadership technique anyway. And motivation is different by person. Some people come to work purely for money. Some people are motivated by praise. Some people are motivated by feeling they've done something good for somebody else. Some people are motivated by any number of different factors, and a mix. Some people need a mix of them all. And it's knowing your people, and it's being able to communicate with your people at the level where you understand what motivates them. It's not anything to do about training. Right, before we go on to one other, somebody's put in colour coding is helpful for those of us in HS that BICSc and the NS, speaking too quickly now, NSOHC colour coding systems are the same.
Yeah.
I think they are now. They are identical now.
Yeah,
anyway, aren't
the
they?
only differentiation is the use that we have for red and white for sanitary parts of the toilet facility. But yeah, exactly the same. Kath, I found it very useful moving from healthcare to BICSc colour code, and it was quite a sigh of relief. So, you know, that I think it should be almost a call to arms, as Neil Andy said before, that if we're all following the same thing, then it doesn't really matter what happens outside of the industry. We should try and change it for the good of the industry.
Okay. What training modules or support does BICSc offer to help new cleaners quickly meet healthcare cleaning standards, especially in clinical environments like my clinic?
Kelsey, over to you.
Fabulous. Okay, so in terms of the practical, in terms of the practical side, obviously we have the normal route. So we have license to practice and skills, and we have healthcare versions that are actually written in line with the NHS England standards. That's the newest ones, the 2025 ones. On the other side of life, theory based, and obviously a big point of discussion, especially within healthcare at the moment and in this webinar, for audits. So we have a cleaning operatives guide and an auditor's guide to the National Health Standards, which, although is based off the English standards, is also very helpful for those outside, because not only do they teach the operatives how to check their own work in terms of in line with both cleaning standards and IPC standards, but also teach how to look out for different things. So the famous 50,000 elements, it seems, within a healthcare environment, and what to look out on, what needs to happen, whether it is cleaning and disinfection, how often, for different functional risks, and also who normally has that responsibility. So really nice guide to quickly get into grasp, how much there is to consider within that environment, but also who they can ask for help with regards to everything, which I think is probably the scariest thing when you first start, especially in a clinic area, of just how much there is and what standard it needs to be. So those are the two theory-based courses, a cleaning operatives guide and an auditor's guide. But obviously on the practical side of things, we have our license to practice and all of the CPSS skills in healthcare form, to meet with healthcare standards.
And those guys for me, they take out the grey area, because that was always one of the complaints. Who is responsible for cleaning it? Those guides clearly identify whether it is the cleaning operative, the nursing staff, or the FM staff, and that is key to understanding.
Right, we have 1 minute left in our hour. So I've got one last question, and I'm taking it back to what BICSc does best, I hope. Ongoing training and keeping it interesting. How do you do it?
You listen to your audience, because your audience, when I stop learning, when I teach, I'll stop teaching. The audience that you teach actually give you the clues of what is inviting to them, what they need to know. It's about keeping them safe, but it's also about keeping that training relevant to the team that you're training.
Kelsey, any tips?
Yeah, I mean, transparency in the full process. Try and keep yourself up to date with any changes that are happening, with extra snippets of knowledge that you can give, but also just make it enjoyable. I mean, I only really remember things that I actually enjoyed listening to. So make it enjoyable, be transparent, and remember to learn yourself.
Okay. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for all your questions. If I haven't got to one of the questions you specifically asked, I do apologise. Probably this webinar could have gone on for hours, but we all have other things to do with our days, and you will end up bored of the sound of our voices after more than an hour, I'm quite sure. But we will drop this webinar in again for picking up on additional questions, things that we haven't picked up on today, or new things that crop up before we next arrange this style of webinar again. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope it's been of use to you and you've enjoyed listening to our voices. But other than that, thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.